How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. My name is Chad. With me is Leonard. This is a show about wrestling. And this week, we thought we would tackle some of the current events that are going on in the world of wrestling, specifically those surrounding Mr. Vince McMahon. And we thought it would be a good time to discuss everything that's being posted because news sources are kind of going crazy with the different updates and backstage news and whatnot. There's a lot out there. Some of it is fact, some of it is just rumor. So we thought we would discuss it here, and please let us know what you think about the whole situation. But basically, it started last Thursday, June 16th, I believe that was. And it was a news story from the Wall Street Journal, which alleged that Vince McMahon paid $3 million to a woman, a former employee, as a part of a settlement for an affair he had while she worked with WWE. Apparently, WWE has said that the relationship was consensual and that Vince used his own money to pay the settlement. And apparently that story also has allegations against the head of talent relations, John Laurinaitis. And I don't know, I heard or read somewhere that maybe this person got passed off to him. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, I believe the quote I remember seeing was passed off like a toy.
Right, which is
given to him as a toy.
Yeah, and so it's important to remember that like this, cites that it was a consensual relationship. And one of the reasons that they're saying that is because Vince McMahon has had sexual assault allegations against him in the past by females. Now, that was long in the past, most of them, I think, in the 90s, but it's just worth noting. And so that was on June 16th. June 17th, Vince stepped down as chairman and CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment, and his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, assumed both roles. And she had, a month or so ago, had recently taken a leave of absence from her position. And so now she's the chairman and CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment. And before we go on with some of the updates, Leonard, what was your initial reaction to this news?
Well, one thing I would like to say is, yes, the $3 million that was part of the hush money was apparently Vince's. But I did also read that while employed with WWE, she received astronomical raises.
Raises. I read that too, yeah.
And those raises would be company money. And I think if they get Vince on anything, like the board, that's what they're going to get him on. Because I don't think they care that he was sleeping with an employee. I don't think they care that he's paying her off through a non-disclosure agreement with his own money. It's that she was getting paid unfairly. I think is where they're going to get him. When I first read the story, again, maybe it's because I'm jaded. It didn't surprise me.
The affair part of it doesn't surprise me in any way.
Yes,
like it really doesn't. I remember there was a clip of him doing an interview with Howard Stern years and years ago where Howard Stern asked him about his sex life other than Linda. And I guess back in the day, he had said, basically, I quote, well, if it had a skirt,
yes.
So that part didn't surprise me. Him not being smart with the money part of it, I might not have expected that.
Yes. And then I kind of wonder why the non-disclosure agreement, because at the same time, he's been open about having affairs.
Right.
Hasn't tarnished really his reputation. Linda's not going anywhere.
Right.
So I gotta wonder, does she know something? Did he confess something to her in private?
The kids the family, I should say, had to know that this could potentially come down the pike. They had to know. Because and a little footnote to this is that it was reported by CNBC's Alex Sherman that the decision to elevate Stephanie McMahon to CEO and chairman was an optics play designed to signal that Vince has no intention of stepping down in any real sense, because he's still retaining his role and responsibilities related to WWE's creative content.
Right. Now here's a question. I don't know if you read that in anything. I did not. But since Stephanie had just taken a recent leave of absence, why not Shane?
Well, I don't think Shane is I think Shane, let's put it this way. I think Shane is the, prodigal son in a way. He's never, I think after the disagreements that they had in years past and the stuff that Shane tried to do on his own, and now that he's been kind of released as a talent again, I don't think that it's in the cards for Shane to be in any position of power.
Okay. Well, yeah, I knew he was released, but at the same time, if you're going to bring Stephanie back, why not bring Shane back? But here's another question for you on that front. Let's say this was maybe 2 years, year and a half ago. Triple H hadn't had his health issues. He was still in charge of NXT. Do you think Triple H gets the call?
No. I think that he would have more power. I think that Stephanie would still be getting that chair, but I think that Triple H would have much more power than he does now. Over the years, his vision for NXT, combined with his health issues and his constant demotions, have just kind of pushed him gradually. Now, right. He still has a seat at the board, but he's been kind of gradually pushed down the ladder. So yeah, it would have been a little bit different. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened back then. But as we talked about, Vince is still calling the shots. So
yeah, and let me throw out another name at you. How do you think this affects Nick Khan?
Well, initially when this came out, some of the people were suspecting that he was the one behind this because he's been a vocal part of the company, and people were suspecting that maybe he was behind this and wanted to, get power or whatever. But it's more details have come out now about that whole process. So since he's been investigated by the board for this affair, 8 of the 12 members of the board were the ones who started the investigation back in April. That was when the emails of the affair were sent to all of them. The people that weren't involved were obviously Vince, Stephanie, and Triple H. It is believed that Nick Khan was also not involved in the initial investigation.
Do we know where the emails came from?
No, I don't think so. They list, on our website that we used to write for 4-in-1, they listed a news bit where they listed some of the board directors, and I'm not going to go through all of their names. They're
but are those emails from Vince? Are they emails from the woman? Are those internal company emails? Are those private emails?
That's a great question. One would assume that they're internal company emails to a certain degree.
Yes, which even if which would mean that the board would have privilege to those, certainly, but someone has to still give them to them. Someone still has to say, "Here, look at this."
Right.
And that's the question. Another name to throw at you. How do you think this impacts Bruce Pritchard? Pritchard, I know, had been named the interim president of talent relations, replacing Laurinaitis.
Yes. I would say he'd probably stay there. Mm-hmm. That's my guess. As far as I know, there's been no issues with Bruce since he's returned. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that eventually John Laurinaitis is let's assume that Vince doesn't take the fall for this. Let's assume that whatever comes out of the investigation clears him and he returns to his position. Somebody's going to take a hit. They're not going to get out of this unscathed. I will say that 100%.
Yes.
So if it's not Vince, it'll be Johnny Ace.
Yes, that was my thought entirely. If there has to be a fall guy, it will be Johnny Ace. And here's one thing I want to mention. I'm surprised I've not read this anywhere this coming up, is that this is the first time that Vince has had a type of situation where he had criminal investigation against him, where he was risking the company being taken away from him, the steroid trials in the 1990s. And at that time, and I know this from listening to Jim Cornette's podcast, is that they had brought in Jerry Jarrett as a consultant,
Right.
with the idea that if stuff got weird, if Vince was in danger of losing the company, that they were going to sign it over to Jerry. That Jerry was going to take over in some sense, because Vince knew at least Jerry could keep the lights on until he could take back over.
Right.
So I think that's important to note. This isn't the first time that Vince has been threatened with losing control of the company, or the first time that a criminal investigation has been against him, or what have you. And he survived that, although it should be noted that the mid-'90s was a much different time frame than we are at today, and that Vincent McMahon was a much younger man than he is today.
In today's world, like you were saying, I mean, information travels a lot faster, so updates are coming across faster than even I had a chance to really get to them, but like at least before researching this show. Something to add, the board hired the New York-based law firm of Simpson, Thatcher, and Bartlett to conduct the investigation. They have a strong reputation, apparently, and aren't like a fly-by-night group that would phone anything in. They specialize in mergers, finances, acquisitions, and litigation and corporate practices. So
I believe that's what Patrick Bateman specialized in American Psycho.
That's right. Yeah, and hopefully he's a part of this.
Yes. Yes. Well. I'd like to see. Well, I'm happy. The law firm of Thatcher, that Les Thatcher, a wrestling man, is involved with the situation.
And obviously, it is his company.
Yes. That's a joke, people. I know it's not Les Thatcher involved.
So yeah, I mean, my
Thatcher, I know.
My initial reaction to this was just I was surprised. It came across my phone right away on that Thursday. And I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks that this is not going to stop Vince. And another part of me thinks that his stance with the company will probably not be the same again. I don't know. This feels a little bit different to me, this whole investigation. But let's talk about the appearances that he's made since then. So it was announced on that Friday that he would be appearing on SmackDown, and I don't watch SmackDown regularly,
and we know I don't.
Right. But once I saw that, I was like, well, I'm gonna tune in. I want to hear what he has to say. And it was a shit ton of nothing.
Yeah. I watched the clip, which I think is a handful of seconds. Yeah. I know he was on Raw. I did not watch Raw, so I don't know what that. But go ahead and fill in on both.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a crap ton of nothing. He basically just repeated the company slogan, "Then, now, forever, together," and yada yada. It was and before, when the news was posted that he was going to appear, some had viewed it as a cheap ratings ploy, and that was my first gut reaction after actually seeing it. Was that it was a cheap ratings ploy, that it was simply, that's what it was. Since then, Bully Ray, who does a radio show, said he viewed it as either a middle finger to the investigation or Vince's way of saying goodbye.
Well, let me throw you a third one. Jim Cornette said that he felt it was like, you see those movies where the U.S. is invaded or the White House is taken over and the president's in their bunker. And he says to his aides, "Get me on TV. The people need to see me. The people need to know I'm still here."
Right.
And he thought that's what it was. And again, this is him knowing Vince personally, that it was him feeling that he needed to show himself on TV, not only for the fans, but for the stock price and other different things. Although I think that Bully Ray's takes can also be valid.
Well, I would have given more thought to what Bully Ray said had he not made a second appearance on Monday Night Raw.
Mm-hmm.
And that appearance was basically him talking about what edition it was of Raw, that it was the longest running cable series, and basically hyping the return of John Cena. So now that he's made two appearances, he can't say it was a goodbye.
No.
And I lean more towards the middle finger and the ratings ploy.
Yeah, I don't know at the time that we're recording this. I don't know if official numbers are out from Raw. I believe SmackDown is, and I believe SmackDown did see a significant jump.
I was gonna yes. So I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say that they brought in a rating of 0.57 in the 18 to 49 demographic and 2.29 million viewers. Those are up right from about 29.6%. It was because the week before it was a 0.44 in that demo. And so it's their biggest numbers since the April 8th episode. And obviously, you know, people will cite that there was the championship match between Matt Riddle and Roman Reigns. Stop. That's not why people were tuning in. That's not why people were tuning in. They were tuning in because Vince was going to appear and they wanted to hear what he had to say. Like, nobody tuned in because they thought Matt Riddle was going to win the Undisputed Championship. Just stop. We all knew it was a fine match. You know, I caught it because I was in the room, you know, but nobody believed that he had a chance. So anyway, yeah, I just, to me, it really shows a lot about Vince's character. And there have been numerous debates about this on the various podcasts out there with people that have known Vince McMahon. You know, stories about how good of a person he is and this, that, and the other. But when you're being investigated for something like this and your response is, if I go on TV, that'll get us a rating spike. Mm-hmm. That to me tells a lot about a person's character, even if it turned out to be a factual statement that it was a rating spike, you know.
Vince is weird. For every negative story against him, there's a positive story.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me a lot of J.R. Ewing, having been a big Dallas fan.
Right.
J.R. Ewing was a son of a bitch of a character, but he had, and what made him such a great character, he had a soft spot for his family. He was dedicated to his business.
Right.
Even with negative qualities, that there were positive elements underneath it. And that seems very much like to Vince, because every positive story you hear about him seems to be about him looking after a particular talent. Right. You know, I always go to the story about after Eddie Guerrero died, and he went to Vicky and he said, you know, you will always have a job and I will get those kids through college.
Right.
And that is, and again, he didn't just hand her a pot of money. He's like, we will find you something to do, and I will pay you for the work that you do for me.
Right. And there's a lot of stories like that. Mm-hmm. You know, although one could argue if there were medical benefits, that some of those stories that you hear about him taking care and sending people to rehab might not be a factor at all. But
yeah, he would have to do it out of his own pocket.
I digress. Yeah,
it can just be done.
So there are those. Me personally, I think that there's a time to be the Mr. McMahon character and give the middle finger to the people investigating you, and there's time to be subtle. And to me, and I realize Vince is not a very subtle person, but you know, and apparently his demeanor backstage was good and he was upbeat, you know, but in my opinion, I think he should have just, you know, accepted this quietly and let things go as they would. So as it stands now, like just some of the quotes that Vince himself had released, that he said, I have pledged my complete cooperation to the investigation by the special committee, and I will do everything possible to support the investigation. I've also pledged to accept the findings and outcome of the investigation, whatever they are. So my question, not being an expert on the inner workings of WWE corporate, is he steps down as CEO and chairman, but he's still calling the shots creatively. So what exactly is he stepping down from? Like sending emails? Like attending some meetings? Like,
well, yeah, I think as you said earlier, based on one story, that they believe it's an optics play, and it probably is. I mean, technically, he no longer, quote unquote, runs the company.
Right. That's what I mean. So a lot of this seems like just doing what's expected, but hoping but nobody's going to take it seriously, but we've got to do this. And Stephanie had quotes where she's like, we take this kind of conduct seriously. And I'm happy to accept the position, and it's all a bunch of BS corporate.
Right. I mean, technically, I would say that if he's still in charge of creative, that means just the television side. And WWE is a lot more than what you see on TV.
True.
So what all behind the scenes, he technically will not be.
If there's a Marine 7, he might not have a hand in it.
Right. He may not get an executive producer credit on the Marine 7. But yeah, everyone knows Stephanie is talking to her dad every morning, every night, and 3 times in the middle.
Exactly. This is a resignation, in air quotes, in basically with no real backbone to it. The WWE stock has taken a couple hits, and if that continues, that is something to keep an eye on, because that's a big part of the company. Stock closed at $62.51 on Friday, which is down $2.36. It also dropped Thursday, so I don't have the exact updates on that since then, but I'm assuming that hasn't gone up. And as a last kind of news bit here, there have been other law firms. Scott & Scott's attorney at law announced an investigation into WWE regarding if certain company directors and officers breach their fiduciary duties to the company and its shareholders. And I guess 3 other law firms are investigating Mr. McMahon for violations of the federal security laws. So it's a pile on right now.
Right. Well, like I said earlier, that's how they're going to get them. You got Al Capone for tax evasion.
Right. Exactly.
That's how they're going to get Vince is on the money.
So these companies, whether they see blood right now.
Right.
So everybody's flocking to see what sticks. We don't know right now what sticks. My gut tells me that he will escape this because he's escaped just about everything, and he has Jerry McDevitt, who, by all accounts, is one of the best lawyers that there is.
Yeah. Well, hey, he's got the money to buy one of the best lawyers there is, so he's going to have it.
Right. So if he does go down, then whatever is going on here must be ironclad.
Yeah.
So, Leonard, what do you think? Any other final thoughts?
No, I think it would be interesting to maybe revisit this topic, say, at a year's time, or maybe 6 months, depending on how fast things play out. At the end of the day, I don't think we're going to know everything. And I think it's going to come around to Vince probably being reinstated, or even if he doesn't get his CEO title back, to be still involved to some degree. And I will throw one more question out at you. Do you think this impacts would somehow play into the rumored selling of the WWE to NBC Universal? That's been floated since Peacock took over the WWE network.
Right.
Do you think that, and that would be a way to totally cut Vince out if a complete other corporate entity took it over?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I've said this, and you and I have agreed on this, that we think it's more plausible that a company, a large corporation, will buy the WWE rather than it be passed down to Stephanie.
Yes.
I still, even though she's chairman and CEO, I still believe that's the case. So yeah, I mean, I think that although these steps right now seem like, I don't know if that would ever happen, it's very possible that if another corporation buys the company, that slowly the McMahons are kind of phased out. So at this point, anything is possible. A lot of people have commented on it on Twitter, obviously, be it former employees. Vince Russo has not been quiet about saying this is karma and all that. Maria Kanellis as well has talked about, abuse of power. So it's, he's not a 100% beloved figure. So it'll be interesting to see what happens after this. There was another news bit where they talked about what could result in Vince McMahon's termination, his employment termination. Basically, with the agreement, like they would have to have cause to terminate the executive's employment, and it could be anything. They list a whole bunch of things: theft or embezzlement, attempted theft or embezzlement, intentional perpetration or attempted perpetration of fraud, so on and so forth. So, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm anxious to see how this develops. Do you think that Stephanie is going to try and throw her weight around in any way, Leonard?
No, not at all. Especially considering that she wanted to take some time away, and she seemed to have been pulled back into this. And I'll tell you this too. Even though Vince has made TV appearances, I bet you Stephanie doesn't.
Yeah, I was waiting for that before I was expecting Vince to appear. Once I heard that Stephanie took over, I was like, oh, well, she's going to come out then, right? Well, apparently not. I mean, apparently they want, maybe they want to have people think that, hey, Vince is still here.
Right. I think that's very much. Vince is still here. And again, you mentioned he didn't play the Mr. McMahon character per se, from what I saw, but he was on TV. But I think definitely the idea with them is probably, well, we don't want to put Stephanie on TV because Stephanie is the Stephanie McMahon character, and we don't want super mega bitch on wheels as our figurehead.
Right, because the appearances she's made where she's out of character are very few and far between. Like whenever you see her on TV, it's usually as that heel character.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about it right now for this. Yeah. Let us know what you think in the comments about the whole situation. Do you think that Vince will be fired? Do you think that he will be in his position as promoter until he dies? We shall see. I do think that the company will be sold, though. I am still a firm believer in that because all signs point to something like that happening. Shane ain't getting it. Triple H ain't getting it. And if Stephanie being elevated was simply an optics play, then he must not have much faith in anybody to take over. So
no, and if she would happen to get it, she would sell it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So as I said, let us know what you think. Check us out on Apple Podcasts and/or Spotify. Check out our Stupid Questions series. We have a lot of fun doing all of those. And for Leonard, my name is Chad. We will see you next week, and Alexa will see you out.